I'm going to log in with my account. And this is my super admin account, so in here, of course, I can see everything within the platform. There's no restrictions or limitations on my account. And the first thing I want to show you is the new additions or the new enhancements that support the tracking feature of trunks and occupancy measurements. So for those of you who are not familiar with ACCCM, again, the first thing that you will see would be the Config tab. And what I want to do here, I want to go and choose the CM. And I can see at the moment I got 3 communication managers configured. And I can see that 53, as an example, is currently tracking the traffic usage on my switch, and the history length is currently configured for 10 days. If I'll choose this communication manager and click on this little waves icon right here, the system would go about and launch a new window. And I can see all the trunks that I currently got configured on my communication manager. Keep in mind, this data is coming directly from the database rather than the switch itself. So the synchronization application, when we did an initial synchronization, went about and synchronized or fetched all the trunks on my switch and placed them on my database. And if I was to go to the synchronizer application itself, I can locate the synchronizer application under the program files, Avaya, services, synchronizer. As soon as I would launch the sync application, you would notice there's a new object under the list of supported objects, and that object would be the trunks. And again, only if you already synchronize the trunks in your environment, right here, only if you synchronize the trunk in your environment prior to this configuration, only then you would see the data under trunk management. So the sync app itself is responsible of fetching the trunks from the communication manager and saving it into the following table within ACCCM. That's my database right here. And if I'll scroll down, we can locate the trunks table. And again, this table is populated by the sync service itself. As you can see as an example, these 5 entries, or these 5 trunks, are currently measured internal, which means ACCCM can go about and monitor the traffic usage on these trunks. However, these ones right here are set to none. So even if I really want to, I cannot go about and track the measurements on these trunks, as these are blocked on the switch itself for measurements. If you go about and change the trunk on the switch and choose either an internal or both for measurement, then you would be able to leverage ACCCM license tracker and start and receive license reports on your traffic and your occupancy measurements. So going back to my UI, we've seen where to configure, and again, track traffic is set to yes, and the history length is set to 10. This is where we're going to go about and configure the tracking itself. Then we're going to choose which trunks we want to go about and monitor, whether we want to monitor all of them or just a few. And once we did that, we can go about and locate, again, I'm under the Config tab, we can locate the License Tracker tab right here, and I can go about and configure products that I'm going to monitor. In this example, we've previously configured 4 different products: a communication manager, an AES server, a POM server, and a dialogue designer. You would notice that for communication manager, the only thing I need to do is just to choose the relevant communication manager from the list of predefined CMs in my environment. However, if I want to monitor an AES, for example, I got to go about, and of course this won't work with AA, I need to go about and input my WebLM address in the following structure. So it's not only enough to input the IP address of my WebLM host, we need to make sure to input the URL in a certain structure, and this would be the actual structure. And of course, you can always refer back to the ACCCM configuration guide on what is the allowed values for the license tracker configuration. In this case, my AES history would be 10 days. I'm going to save it on the DB. It's enabled, and every 15 minutes, the ACCCM license tracking server will go about and track the license usage on this WebLM. A few words I want to stress out, especially in regards to WebLM products. If you guys are familiar with earlier releases of ACCCM, we had several known issues in release 6.3 where some, not all, but some of the license types of the WebLM were not pre-configured in ACCCM. The way the license tracker works, it's fetching the data from the WebLM itself, and then it's searching for a specific database table within the ACCCM itself that would give him an indication what would be the possible license types on this WebLM. And if there is a license type, and this is valid for previous releases and also the current release, if there's a special license type that is not configured in the ACCCM dictionary, in that case ACCCM won't know how to parse that license or display it. And as an example, if you got a WebLM with 5 licenses, a scenario would be where you can go about and track 4 license types, however the 5th one won't be displayed. Now, the reason for this type of a mismatch can happen only if that specific license type is not pre-configured in the ACCCM dictionary. So in previous releases, we had to execute several scripts on top of the database in order to support these new license types. But in release 7, what we did, we gave the end user or the customer or the system owner the ability to manually configure license types that are not supported by default by ACCCM. So if I'll scroll all the way to the right, you will notice the WebLM products. And under WebLM products, I can go about and configure a new license type that exists on my WebLM server. And that license type is not available in ACCCM. However, if I want to go about and monitor that specific license type, I can configure it in ACCCM WebLM products tab right here. By doing so, we're actually now giving the end customer or the system owner the ability to manually configure these license types if they're not available in ACCCM, instead of contacting our support team and asking for the relevant database script. So in release 7, we'll have the ability of manually pre-configure license types that are not available out of the box within ACCCM. Now, I'm going to go back to my license tracker tab, and I'm going to choose my communication manager. Now, as you can see, I got an option, and with this button right here, the notification button, as you can see, there's tooltips for each and every one of the ACCCM buttons. If I choose notifications and click on it, in here I can go about and configure a new notification that the ACCCM notification service, this guy right here, would send either via an SMTP or an SNMP. And then I can say, you know what, I want to do an email notification for the following email address. I can use predefined templates. And I want to choose this system, CM62, and it will be a communication manager. And I want to say every time that my logged in ACD agents is bigger than my threshold, and I want to say 100 is a threshold, so usage. Every time that my logged in ACD agents would be bigger than 100, I'm going to send out an email notification to liranb@itnv.com stating that the license usage under my communication manager for logged in ACD agents exceeded my pre-configured threshold. So this is quite fairly simple and pretty much straightforward, nothing too complex here. We just need to remember to use the order of, or the sequence of events. And the sequence would be to first of all configure a notification using the type, whether it be an email or an SNMP, a valid address for an email address, choose the relevant template, and then choose the relevant license type on a particular system. And once we do so, this guy right here, again, the ACCCM notification service, would be responsible of sending notification alerts to liranb@itnv.com. Finally, before we'll take a look at the license tracker portal itself and the Sphere environment itself, I want to show you guys the new addition into the Sphere environment, the Sphere Analytics. Under my CMS configuration, you will find a new checkbox right here, Import to Sphere. And as long as we're checking that inbox, we're telling to the system that, hey, you're going to go about and index results from the CMS Informix database and save it into the ACCCM Sphere table on the ACCCM DB. And we can also find the same configuration available under the IQ tab within the ACCCM configuration itself. All right, so let's start by logging into the ACCCM License Tracker portal. If you want to leverage the License Tracker environment, we need to browse to the server name or IP address /ACCCM License Tracker. I'm going to log in with my administrative account. By the way, the reason we're seeing this automatic Windows authentication failed, enter credentials manually, we're seeing this message because the system is configured for a default authentication of SSO, single sign-on, and this user doesn't have a domain account. And that's why we're getting that authentication failed message, use basic or input your manual credentials. So again, once I'm going to log into the License Tracker portal, the system by default would show me the settings screen. And in here I can modify the refresh rate. It's currently set by default to 60 seconds. And I can choose whether I want to see the settings tab first, dashboard, historical, occupancy, or trunk measurements. Let's take a quick look what's configured under dashboard. Under the dashboard tab, we'll see a real-time representation of the license usage in my environment. As we can see, because we've configured, if I go back to ACCCM and the License Tracker tab, because we configured only these 4 products, these are the 4 we can see or choose from right here. I'm going to focus on the Communication Manager in this example. In this example, we can see the Communication Manager with all the different licenses that are available on the switch itself. And if I want to, I can choose to go about and compare between license types. And in here, I'm comparing between 3 possible types: IP agent, IP phone, and agent SC. And based on my selection, the system will display, or the graph would change to represent the data of my license types. I can go about and change the order of the graphs. I can easily change the layout of the screen by modifying the size or the position of each and every one of these boxes right here. So this in regards to the dashboard, the real-time representation. We got a little lab, a power outage earlier this morning. So basically all of my AES servers, POM servers, and Dialog Designer are down. These are already pre-configured, so I can see the AES application enablement usage for basic or advanced TCP licenses. We don't see any data at the moment, again, because these 3, unfortunately, are down due to scheduled maintenance. So this is the dashboard tab, and again, will give us a real-time representation of the license usage. Under the historical tab, what I'll do, I'll choose a report, and again, based on my selection, the system will show me the relevant parameters, whether I want to use or generate a license-based report, whether I want to generate an occupancy measurement report, or whether I want to choose to go with an historical report for trunk capacity. I would go with license. I'm going to choose either peak license usage daily, intra-daily license usage, or license comparison interval, where I can compare between different times of day on the same license type. I'm going to go with peak license usage daily. I'm going to choose my system, my communication manager. I'm going to do the date selection. I want to do from February 1st up until February 20th. And I want to do here the following. I want to do stations, station capacity, and I want to do station and trunk ports. Now I can either choose to run the report, which will generate the report on the following box right here at the bottom of the page. And this would give me a daily license peak usage for these two types. And again, there's nothing much to see here except up to there. I can see 193 on both. And if I want to, I would choose to click on the Export to CSV button right here on the very right-hand corner of the screen. And in here, I can actually view, the system would generate a CSV file where I can download that file and basically be able to share the report right here. So I got my CSV file right here. Let's see if I can open it with, I don't have an Excel basically set up on this server. So what I'll do, I'll just open it with a notepad so we can see the output. That will be the output, and of course, as long as it's CSV file and we're opening that file in Excel, with an Excel program, we can also save it as an Excel spreadsheet if we want to. So this in regards to the dashboard or the real-time and historical tabs within the license tracking portal. And again, there's nothing much new here, especially not in release 7. These two would be the new enhancements or the new features we've introduced in release 7, the occupancy measurements and the trunk measurements. As I told you earlier, I got a little power outage this morning, so I don't have any live data for these two. I would use pre-configured data. And in here we can see the occupancy measurements for Miami, which is basically a location that is attached to my switch. And I can see the occupancy measurements. Either I can choose all, or if I want to, I can go about and choose a specific hour. I can see the static occupancy, the idle occupancy, total calls, and so on and so forth. And again, this is a lab communication manager, so I don't have any viable or much data here to walk around with. As you can see, most of the time we're idle and there's nothing too complex or nothing is, we're not utilizing that communication manager. Let's put it like that. And again, same thing here. I can go about and switch between, I can choose different types. I'm going to go with static or call processing occupancy, and the system will go about and parse or format a report or a graph and display it on screen. So this is in regards to the occupancy measurements. And under trunk measurements, we can go about and see the relevant, as long as I'll choose my system, I can see the relevant, all the relevant trunks, again, that I've pre-configured, and the trunk usage on each and every one of these two, whether I want to go with my ITNV PRI Celcum, which is, by the way, is my one of my production switches right here in my lab. As you can see, I got 30 members on that trunk groups. The group's type would be an ISTN, and again, I can compare between different features right here, and the graph on the right-hand side will go about and show me the usage of these features within the trunk itself. So again, this is the new features in Release 7 for occupancy measurements and trunk measurements. Oh, I got my CM up and running by now, so I can see a few data for my production environment. And again, if I want to, I can choose certain or several item types and take a look how it looks like in the graph itself when comparing those. So just to summarize what is new in Release 7 in regards to the license tracker environment, the first thing that we're supporting is the trunks configuration in ACCCM. And if we want to leverage that feature, we want to make sure our trunks are measured, and then we need to sync them into our environment using the synchronization application. By the way, as a side note, if you guys are familiar with ACCCM, you would know that the sync has two representations. The first one would be the sync application, where the second would be the sync service. The sync service does not support trunk synchronization. The sync application is the only component within the platform that supports synchronization of trunks. So we need to use the application rather than service to to synchronize trunks into the environment. Then we want to go about and either modify or just create a new communication manager and choose the whether it's going to be monitored or not, and what would be the history length. Then we're going to choose what trunks are we going to monitor or measure in the environment using the trunks button right here, trunk management. And again, in this case, we're tracking all of them, although several of them are not monitored on the switch itself, which basically means we won't be able to monitor them in ACCCM. Then we would go to the license server or license tracker tab under the config tab. We're going to choose our products and configure them accordingly. And again, remember, there's a WebLM based licenses and there's non-WebLM based. The non-WebLM based would be a communication manager and the CMS server, where the rest of the products, whether it's Dialog Designer, Voice Portal, AES, so on and so forth, these would be a WebLM based. We need to input the URL and an administrative username and password. And again, as a side note, we'll require the admin account, the built-in admin account for the WebLM for this integration. And here we're going to do the same thing. We're going to choose the number of history we want to go about and save to our database. We're going to choose whether to enable or disable this feature, and what would be the tracking interval in minutes. So at the moment it's set to 15, which means every 15 minutes the ACCCM Communication Manager connector, and again, because this is a communication manager, then the CM connector would be responsible of connecting to the switch, doing the list measurement command, doing the display capacity command in order to fetch down the license usage and save it, pass this information to the license tracker, and the license tracker would save it in the ACCCM database. If we want to, we can go about and leverage the notification engine feature that was introduced in Release 7 to configure alerts, whether it's an SNMP or an SMTP notification for a specific product or a specific license type. And again, we want to make sure that the ACCCM notification engine is up and running under our system services if we're going to leverage this feature in ACCCM. And finally, in regards to WebLM-based products, what we want to make sure that all the relevant WebLM types or WebLM license types are configured properly. And basically, what the best practice of it is just to log in manually to the WebLM. In the WebLM, you will see how many license types you guys have, and then you would search for these types right here. If these types are not available, you can manually add them by just inputting the product name. In this case, the name would be an AES, and then the feature name you can configure right here. For example, the value is value_advanced_TSAPI_licenses. And again, you would use this in most cases, I want to say, around 70% of all instances of ACCCM that are configured with License Tracker. All of them would work out of the box without having to manually input the license types. However, in some environments where you're leveraging the license type, the license portal, only then you will have to, if you see empty values, for example, if you would see a row within license portal that doesn't have any values at all, including the license type name, that will be your indication that you're going to go about and manually configure the product type within ACCCM config WebLM products. By the way, we do support, I can see a question right here, whether we support an enterprise or a master WebLM or a local WebLM. We do support both. We support a local WebLM instance or an enterprise or a master WebLM instance where the enterprise WebLM would be responsible of distributing the licenses across multiple WebLM servers in the environment. This is also supported. The best practice, or what I would do, I would configure in that environment where we're leveraging or where we're integrating into an enterprise WebLM, what I would do, I would configure 3 WebLMs. I would configure the master one, and let's say we got the master and two slaves or two enterprise WebLMs, I would configure all three. And why I would configure all three? I would configure all three so I would have an indication about the total license usage on my master or enterprise WebLM and the license usage per WebLM server, whether it's a remote or local one. So my best practice or my tip would be, if we're using an enterprise WebLM, to configure all, including the slaves, WebLMs in the environment. Right, so now we can go about and quickly move over to the Sphere itself. And as a reminder, in Release 7, one of the things that we've added to the Sphere environment is the ability to go about and search with or get results for a CMS server or an IQ server. Let me quickly log in. And again, as you can see, this is the first thing that you'll see, just a relatively clean UI with just one search field. And in here I can go about and choose if I want to search under Avaya. And if I'll choose Avaya, the system will search for all the communication manager related objects in my database. If I'll choose Analytics, I must use a certain syntax in order to fetch the information from the Informix database or the Oracle database of the IQ. By the way, this is also new in Release 7. The ACCCM button in here would give you the ability to browse more easily to a specific tab within ACCCM. For example, if I click on users, the system would open up a new window and redirect me to the users page within ACCCM. Same go for configuration, permissions. And this is totally configurable by you guys. So if you go right here and click on personalization, you'll have the ability to go about and add either new tabs to the top UI or change or add new buttons or objects right here to the drop-down selection, which is pretty cool. And well, we all know that most of the customers just love customizations, and we can easily give them the ability to customize their own screen layout right here. So if we're more familiar, or if we're using more the Users tab for changing, I don't know, agent skills, as an example, I would use the Users tab right here. If I'm using the Avaya tab or the Audit tab more frequently, I can just change it and put it right here. I can also add a customized links. For example, I can add an extra tab right here with any URL that I want to, whether I want to launch my CRM system or whether I want to browse to my HR portal in the environment. So again, if you guys are familiar with ACCCM, you would know, let's say I want to go about and search for a specific agent. Now, I don't know, I want to search for agent Liran. I'm going to hit enter. And again, the system will give me there's currently two agents, 1015 and 1035, with that same name. I'm going to choose this one, for example. And as you can see, the system would launch a new external window and will give me that agent details. And I can go about and change the agent parameters in here. And if I want to, I can go about, change the agent skills, assign the agent to the CMS supervisor application, or even move the agent from one team to another. And just as a quick tip on what we're planning to do on future releases, we're actually in the midst of revising our entire UI from this UI to a more clean and well-organized UI to look more similar to the Sphere environment rather than this UI of top tabs. It's going to be very exciting, and it's quite cool, to be honest. We're hoping to introduce the new UI, or at least several parts of the new UI of ACCCM in release 7.1 that's due later on this year. So this is the search under the Avaya tab. But now what's new in 7 is the ability to go about and search for a specific CMS entry. Now, to be perfectly honest, I can't remember the syntax by heart. So what I did is just copy and paste this specific syntax. And this syntax, as soon as I hit search, actually I need to click on Analytics first. to tell to the system or let the system know that he needs to search under the IQ or Sphere or CMS. And now I can issue the following syntax: agent 37001, ACD time daily today, minus 20,000. And what will happen is, and as far as I remember, guys, there's no need to memorize this specific syntax. In the ACCCM Sphere configuration guide, you would find an example on what would be the allowed values to search for either CMS Informix result or an IQ Oracle results. And this would actually search for agent 37001. What's the ACD time daily today for that agent? So let's go about and hit search. And again, what's happening in the back end, the system is initiating a new a query to the Informix database of the CMS itself. And again, of course, if you want to leverage it, we need to make sure we've configured the CMS integration under the config tab in CMS. What will happen in the back end, the system would use these details in order to go about and issue an ODBC connection to the Informix database. In more details, to the CMS, there's a database catalog named CMS on the box. That's the box name. It will issue up using an Informix ODBC driver, an ODBC connection using this username and password. And then it will issue the following command. And this output came directly from the CMS Informix database. Again, unfortunately, in the current build, this CMS system is not installed with web reports. So if I click on it, nothing will happen. I can see in here that the total talk time for all ACD calls for this agent would be 0 for skill number 5 and skill number 9. Again, this is a lab system, so I don't have much live data on it. Okay, folks, so we're pretty much done for this session. Just to summarize things, we've covered up the new enhancements in ACCCM Release 7 that are related to the license tracker portal, the notification engine, and the new Sphere Analytics enhancements in order to support search algorithms for CMS Informix database and IQ Oracle database.